Good morning, everyone. My name is Vladimir Duthiers. I am the host of What to Watch on CBS This Morning, and I'm also an anchor on CBSN, our 24-hour digital news streaming platform. So we've got a new survey out that says, I'm going to read it to you, that nearly half of American adults believe the coronavirus pandemic is affecting their mental health. 19% say it's having a major impact. So today on CBS This Morning, we had a psychologist and CBS News contributor, that's Lisa Damour. She joined us from Cleveland to to talk about and answer your questions on the coronavirus, about mental health specifically. And she's going to join me live on this chat shortly to answer some of the questions that you may have. So if you've got questions, we want to hear them. We'll get Lisa to respond to them. We hope that you're finding what we're doing on CBS This Morning informative and useful. We're trying to present facts over fear. And as you can tell, I'm coming to you live right now from the CBS News Upper West Side Bureau, which is otherwise known as my apartment. And all of us have been broadcasting from our homes over the last couple of weeks because the CBS News Broadcast Center was shut down about 3 weeks ago because of the coronavirus pandemic. We had a couple of people on our staff who tested positive. And so out of an abundance of caution, we moved our show first to Washington, D.C., and then to the Ed Sullivan Theater, where the Late Show with Stephen Colbert broadcast. And now finally we're all broadcasting from our homes. So we will wait for Lisa to join us. And as we're waiting for Lisa to join this chat, let us see if you've got some questions that we can perhaps prepare for Lisa when she joins in on the chat. Hey, good morning, Nashville, Tennessee. Here's Lisa. All right.
Good morning, Vlad.
Hi, Lisa.
It took me a minute to find the right button. How are you?
Yeah, no, it's okay. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to see you. Thanks so much
I'm
for
glad
having
to
me
see
on this
you.
morning.
I'm glad to see you. Thank you very much. And I'm glad that you are safe and you're healthy, you and yours. But as we've been saying to our viewers on the broadcast network, we are all broadcasting from home, as are you. And so let's kick this off, Lisa. A lot of people, including myself, I mean, I'm a reporter and I'm getting all the information in real time. We have access to our correspondents who are sitting in those White House press briefings. We can get the information as we need it. We have access to medical contributors like yourself and Dr. Tara Narula and Dr. David Agus. And even I find myself at night anxious about possible infection. I go for a jog in the park, and I know that there's a hospital in Central Park, and I worry about just being downwind from that. So I guess the first question that I think I'd like to know is, regardless of all the information out there, how do you sometimes block all that out so that you just stay mentally fit?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple strategies. So one is, anxious thinking by definition is when we overestimate how much danger we're in and underestimate our ability to manage the threat. So if people are feeling really anxious, it may be that they're watching too much news, right? Because that can cause people to overestimate their dangers. I'd also have people be very careful about social media right now. I think it can be a little bit of an emotional slot machine, where sometimes you get on and there's something that kind of lifts you up, but other times you get on and there's something that really knocks you off your axis. So be careful about consumption of information because it can really skew your sense of your risk level. And then don't underestimate what you can do to stay safe, right? This is where the social distancing is so powerful, and washing our hands and not touching our faces, that we can do an enormous amount to protect our own safety. And that usually gets anxiety back in balance. The other thing I would say is, don't think about it all the time, right? If you find yourself becoming really anxious, thinking about something you can do nothing about doesn't seem to help people feel better. So watch a great television show, go talk to somebody, lose yourself in a novel. These are perfectly reasonable strategies right now.
what do you recommend for people to stay positive? I know it's one thing to have stimuli. I've got, I'm a big reader. I've got music that, that sort of distracts me from things that I worry about generally. But it doesn't sometimes take away from sort of these negative thoughts that I have. And so how do you stay positive?
Okay, so the first thing that I want to put in a vote for is that mental health isn't that we feel great all the time. It's that we have the right feeling at the right time. So if people are feeling a little scared, a little worried, a little helpless right now, that is a sign of their abundant mental health. And I think sometimes we forget that. We think we should feel good as a sign of mental health. Not necessarily. But if people are feeling too scared, too helpless, too uncomfortable, one really positive thing they can do, and it sounds corny, but it works, is to practice gratitude. We have tremendous research showing that if you stop and reflect on the things you're grateful for, your well-being goes up, your sense of peacefulness goes up, and your sense of control goes up. And I think that that's part of what people are struggling with, is this sense of having lost a lot of control.
So I've often been accused of being like the type of person who so I'll give you an example. I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were all sort of moaning about the fact that we all had to stay at home. And then we sort of got into a conversation where, I said, well, in 2020, staying at home with all of the things that we have at our disposal, the streaming networks that we have, we're more connected than ever. And I thought about Anne Frank, and I said, look, at least we don't have to live in a closet for 3 years. And somebody said to me, I don't know if I would look at it that way, because that sounds like an extreme version of what we're talking about. But I generally tend to do that. I tend to look at, as a reporter, I've been to some places that are really, really horrific. And when I get back to the United States, when I get back home, I always think to myself, I'm very blessed to be here. Whatever I'm going through is not like some of the things that I've witnessed other people around the world going through. Is that a good way to look at things, or does that sometimes make people think that you're putting down the real problems that they have, even in the world that we live in here in the U.S.?
I think it can be a both and, right? That both, this is hard. This is a huge disruption. This is a massive adaptation all at once. And I cannot overstate how stressful adaptation is, even when we have good things that we're adapting to totally renovate how we do every aspect of our lives is exhausting. So that is true. And then the other and is, boy, are we lucky, especially for those who are in privileged situations. If we have access to resources and ways to stay connected, and then what it does is it puts us in mind of people who may not be in the same good position we are. And then I think turns our attention usefully to doing what we can to help those who may not enjoy the same comforts that we do.
Somebody here has a really interesting question. This comes to us from Terry Lynn 574. She says, I have a neighbor who's alone and suffers from depression. How can I help her? She's a 75-year-old widow. What can you do for people in your community, in your family? Because, one of the struggles that people are having right now is we have to, really the only connection we have to people is the one that we're sharing right now, which is video time and video chat. But what can you do with somebody in your neighborhood, in your community, in your family who's alone and more importantly also suffering from depression, which is a real problem?
A real problem. So number one, keep checking in, right? Social isolation and depression are a terrible combination. So keep checking in, stop by. It doesn't have to be long, but it can be an I'm thinking of you, or I left something on your porch, or I'm going to give you a call later. Those things matter. Another thing that I brought up on the broadcast this morning that is critically important is that people can get mental health treatment right now. Under normal conditions, telehealth, which is kind of what we're doing right now, is a specialized thing. You have to have a special license. But the state boards and insurance companies have changed the rules under COVID-19. So all clinicians in most states, and you can just check with your local area, are now allowed to take care of people by video. And insurance companies are now expected, and you have to check with your insurance company, to cover that work. So in some ways, there's never been a more convenient time to get help. You don't even have to leave your house because you can't leave your house. But you can find a good clinician, and clinicians are available, and then you can follow up with them in person after this ends. but people should not delay on seeking mental health care right now. They can get it.
So somebody along that same vein, somebody asked about dealing with, this is Brooke N. Baldwin, who's asking about dealing with panic disorder, agoraphobia, the sort of keeps disappearing on me here. So can you speak on coping with panic disorder, GAD, and agoraphobia during this time?
Okay, so speaking in general terms, some of what we would typically recommend you can't do right now, because for agoraphobia is fear of leaving the house. And right now you cannot practice what we would otherwise have a person with agoraphobia practice, which would be leaving the house and taking sort of baby steps towards getting more familiar and comfortable in the outside world. But what we can say in a general way about taking care of yourself, if you already have a significant anxiety disorder, is practice the basics that really do work. Breathing works. I went down through all the details of that this morning on TV because I think people dismiss it too easily. Muscle relaxation works. Exercise works. Taking incredibly good care of yourself works. Challenging your anxious thoughts works. I don't want people to feel helpless in the face of anxiety disorders. They are highly treatable, often without medication, but you have to do the work of going through the steps that you've learned from a clinician or getting a clinician and working with them. But psychologists understand anxiety as well as we understand anything in our field, and they are treatable disorders. Anxiety disorders are treatable disorders.
So people are chiming in about breathing. I see somebody here, FT Robin 52 says, breathing, thank you. Yes, it does. So can you give us a couple of tips for proper breathing and where the mind should go when we are breathing? And perhaps we're tiptoeing to the line of meditation, which I find very useful. But what are some of the things people should think about if they want to try it for the very first time and, let's say, try to go for 2 or 3 minutes of just breathing exercises and taking your mind to a peaceful place?
Sure. So I'm going to teach you what I use when my anxiety gets too high. It's a technique called square breathing. And I'll tell you what you do, and then we'll do it. So what you do is you exhale your air, and then you breathe in slowly on a count of 3. You hold it slowly for a count of 3. You breathe out slowly on a count of 3, and then you wait for a count of 3. So before we do it, let's just say this. When we breathe slowly, and this is what I mentioned this morning on the broadcast, we actually hack into a set of nerves that run across the surface of our lungs, and they detect the activity of our breathing. These nerves are actually given to us by evolution to let our brain know if we're suffocating. So you can actually send a message to your brain by hijacking these nerves, calming everything down, slowing everything down. It actually sends a message to the brain that everything's okay and you can relax. So when we square breathe, we both activate these nerves, tell them everything is calm, tell the brain everything's okay. And I also find the counting of square breathing is a wonderful distraction. You can't think about whatever was making you anxious while you're counting. All right, let's do it. Ready?
All right, so go ahead. So everybody who's watching, Lisa is going to take us through what she calls square breathing as a way to try and relax ourselves and to relax the mind. So let's go through it.
Okay, so breathe out all your air. Now breathe in slowly. 1, 2, 3. Hold it. 1, 2, 3. Exhale slowly. 1, 2, 3. Wait. 1, 2, 3. That's it. And you see the square. 3, 3, 3, 3. It is incredibly simple. It is incredibly powerful. And what I say to people, yeah.
So one question, breathing through the mouth or breathing through the nose?
I think you do what feels good for you. What I would say is, imagine letting the air fall in. Don't go, right? That does not send a reassuring message to the lungs, right? And so let the air fall in, whatever works for you. And if 3 feels too long, go to 2. And the other advice I would give people is to practice this when you're calm. It actually takes more concentration than you think. But lay it down like a groove. Get good at it. Because if you start to feel anxious, it's easier to slip into that groove if you've practiced this when you're not feeling anxious.
Okay, that's really, really great advice. Somebody asked about food and how important it is to continue to eat a healthy, balanced diet meal and your mental health. One of the things that I know that I found, and I'm sure everybody watching this is going to feel exactly the same way, when I'm working and I'm in my zone, I eat well, I work out, I go to the gym, I go for runs, but in the last 3 weeks that I've been home, yes, I've kept the running up, but man, whatever healthy food options I was, taking in during a normal time has completely gone out the window. I mean, because part of it is that we're at home a lot, and so you're sitting around and you're going to the refrigerator. What's in the refrigerator? What can I eat? I'm probably having an extra glass of wine more than usual. So I guess, is that normal? Should we not feel guilty about eating the things that we normally wouldn't be eating? Or should we try to maintain a semblance of normality even as we are living in not normal times?
So I would say, don't lose your mind. Don't convert to an all-chocolate cake diet right now. You're not going to be happy about it in the long run. At the same time, let's take a step back. This is a massive stressor. We have seen nothing like this in our lives and hope to never see it again. The scale of the disruption that we are going through is very hard to articulate, right? The scale, the scope, the speed. This is a big one. And it's going to pass and we will return to normal. But if you need a little more chocolate cake than you usually have, I think you should enjoy your chocolate cake. I think if you get the munchies, try to munch on some healthier things. But if you don't, do not beat yourself up. One of the things I've been observing around me is that I think sometimes people try to manage that sense of loss of control, which we all have, with this sense of hyper control. I'm going to get in the best shape of my life, and I'm going to eat nothing but incredibly high quality natural foods. And I'm going to clean everything in my house. And okay, rock on if you get it done. But what I would say is that it's okay to feel helpless. It's okay to feel a little bit lost right now. It's okay to just sort of find your way through this. That you don't have to ward off your helplessness with trying to be hyper controlled. You can just feel a little helpless and enjoy some chocolate cake, and that's okay.
That's great advice. That's really wonderful advice. So let me ask you about, and a couple of people are asking about this. They saw the question that we posed that came from a viewer about the neighbor who's all alone and who's suffering from depression. And somebody said, if you're close in the neighborhood, you can, hold signs outside of her home for her. There are ways that what I found has been really fascinating over this 3-week period. I guarantee you, Lisa, there will be screenplays and novels and new technologies, apps that are going to be developed over the course of this pandemic because the people have so much time on their hands that they're focusing a lot of those energies into some creative outlets. I've seen, for example, we had a producer at CBS Sunday Morning who is stuck indoors with his entire family, and they did a video set to the theme music of the old 1970s sitcom One Day at a Time. One day at a time, da da da. And they reenacted the opening of One Day at a Time, and they shot it and they edited it, and it was really, really wonderful. And I thought to myself, this is a family that probably doesn't get a lot of time together, and all of a sudden the entire family, young children, older family members, were involved in this project. And I thought to myself, that's something that I think people can take advantage of, which is engaging in projects, especially with your children, so that they're not stuck on the screens all the time, and coming up with ways. Like, my fiance does puzzles. I can't stand puzzles, but occasionally, we find things to do together that we normally would not do together because our schedules are so different.
Yep. So if something constructive comes from this, fantastic. And what we think about as psychologists is that there's some very adaptive psychological defenses, and one of them is creativity, channeling all of our discomfort or our time or our worries into something creative, humorous, fabulous, interesting. This is a great thing. There are also other things that can come from this that people should feel totally comfortable enjoying, like hanging out around the house with their kids a lot more, or wearing elastic waist pants all the time, right? Like, what a gift.
You don't want to see what's going on below the waist here, Lisa.
My husband declared it his work mullet, business on the top, party on the bottom. So you got your work mullet on, good for you, Vlad.
That's great.
I have say that most mornings I am now watching a YouTube show, The Great Pottery Throwdown. It's fantastic, and my 9-year-old and I start the day by cuddling our way through an episode of The Great Pottery Throwdown. This is such a treat. It is such a wonderful thing. It is such a luxury that we get to do this with each other. So it's okay if you find ways to enjoy this. You should. This is not something we asked for. This is not something we wanted. That doesn't mean you can't find some wonderful corner.
That's really great. Finally, let me ask you about older children, but who are not yet fully formed adults, let's say. People who are, let's say, between the ages of 16 and 21 or 22. We all saw those images of young people on spring break, and I know that Gail, when we were talking about it on What to Watch, Gail was like, she was sort of angry about the fact that young people weren't heeding the advice of medical professionals. But then I thought to myself, all of us, and I think Gail agrees with me, all of us have been young, we've all been stupid, we've all done things, because when you're young, you feel as if you're invincible. You feel as if, nothing can go wrong. Nothing, it's so weird how now that I'm, pushing 50, that I realized to myself all of a sudden, I think this was the first year that I realized, hey, I'm in that demo now where they say, people who need to worry are the really young and the older people. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm now in that category, because for the entirety of my life, I've always thought of myself as young and healthy and fit and strong, and nothing's going to happen to me. So how do you talk to somebody as an adult and you're talking to a person who is an adult in some ways, who's 18 or 19, but try to explain to them what they need to be thinking about? Because this is a message that I got from MZ Annie65, who says, how do I talk with my 25-year-old son about seeing his girlfriend in person? She lives with her elderly parents, and we have 2 people here with autoimmune disease. I don't want to hurt their feelings.
So first let me say, most young people are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. That of course we train our attention on the ones who are out of bounds. But I just, I'm going to stick up for teenagers, and my experience overwhelmingly is that they're doing the right thing. They know the right thing to do, and they're doing it. And they're sacrificing a lot, actually more than a lot of people are. They're losing graduations, they're losing proms, they're losing huge things they've worked really hard for that are once in a lifetime things. So mostly they're doing the right thing. I think for anyone, and especially a young adult or a teenager, we have to assume they have 2 sides. One side which might want to do the wrong thing, be impulsive, be regressive, give in to those, kind of wishes, and a side that is deeply thoughtful, mature, altruistic, caring, and wise. And in my experience, whatever side you speak to is the side that shows up for the conversation. So I would say to the 25-year-old, oh my God, buddy, I get it. Of course you want to see your girlfriend. Who wouldn't, I get to be with my partner right now. I get that you want to see her desperately, but I also know that you would never feel comfortable if you had any question in your mind about whether you had contributed to a health problem for her family or our family. And so we're just going to have to come up with a creative solution. And I will say right now, Vlad, the 2 words that keep coming up for me are adaptation and creativity. That we are adapting to a completely new way of doing things. And by things, I mean everything, right? How we go to the grocery store, how we exercise, how we do our jobs, what we wear. All of this is different, as is everyone around us adapting to everything all at once. So it's tremendous upheaval. And what I know is humans are adaptive and humans are creative. So we have to give ourselves a little time to figure out how to do the things we want to do under these new conditions. But I never would underestimate people's ability to come up with creative solutions to problems. We just have to spend a little time coming up with it.
It's great advice. And to your point, Lisa, about the young people, for example, high school seniors, college seniors who are not going to be able to indulge in the rite of ritual that all of us get to enjoy as young people, saying goodbye to their friends before graduation, or going to a prom, or walking through graduation. Although I gotta say, my prom, like the girl I went with, like disappeared after the first 20 minutes, and so I have no fond memories. For all those people who are out there, what am I going to do about my prom? You're not missing much.
That is overrated. We tell you right now, prom is
Exactly. Hang out with your buddies at the gas and sip in the parking lot. Much more fun. But for those people who are missing out on those rituals, how should, I don't know. I sort of think to myself, when they look back at this time, is it going to be a memory that is uncomfortable to tap into, or are there things that they should be doing or thinking about, maybe with their friends, that they can do remotely?
So first of all, I'm going to stick up for the uncomfortable memory. Actually, I'm going to stick up for all sorts of uncomfortable feelings right now. It is okay if you're sad. It is okay if they are sad now and then sad when they think about it later. We can spare ourselves energy of trying to feel good all the time when things are not as they should be. But that said, I think tremendous empathy is deserved to these young people to say, oh man, this stinks. You got robbed. These are once in a lifetime deals. And I'm so sorry, even if prom is overrated, which it is. And then I think we stand back and we watch them be creative. I am waiting to see how these young people find closure, how they mark these transitions. My bets are that they're going to come up with stuff that is so much more thoughtful, creative, and interesting than anything we could have invented for them. Give them a little time, they will do it. And I think the other thing we can say to them is, this does not have to change your overall trajectory. This is not going to dent you, indefinitely. And you should think this and maybe not say it. But one of the things that we know from research is that when people endure very difficult life circumstances and are able to get through them, they're actually more resilient in the face of new difficulties. So what a crisis does, and this is a crisis, is that it adjusts our yardstick for what we consider other crises to be. So when young people get to college and they don't like an instructor, or they get dumped by a crummy boyfriend or something, their sense of how bad that is will be moderated by having gotten through this. And that is a gift they get to keep.
That's really wonderful. Two more questions that I think I'll combine into one before we wrap this up, because I think it's on the same subject. Somebody, SBDRR, asked, how do we help our kids have things to look forward to when we don't know what the future will hold? And somebody else, Healthy Living Mama, says, how do we help kids at home who are struggling and acting out more?
So it is a little tricky, right? This ambiguity about when this all ends. And I'm a mom, I've got 2 kids. And so I'm sort of saying, like, well, I don't know what's going to happen to your school year. I'm presuming you'll be back at school in the fall, right? And they're asking about camp, and they're asking about all sorts of things. And I can't give them a good answer. So what you can do under these conditions is to say, here, I'll tell you when I know, and in the meantime, it is pretty crummy to feel this helpless and uncertain. We can just empathize with their discomfort. Okay, kids stirring it up, kids acting out. I think the reality of this may be really starting to there. I think the first couple of weeks you're like, whoa, this is different, and you're just adapting so quickly you don't really tune in. What I would say is, thank goodness the weather is changing. Spring is coming everywhere. So first thing I would do is get everybody outdoors. Just get them outdoors. Everybody's mood improves in fresh air. And then what I would say is, whenever a kid is doing something annoying, they have an aim. They are trying to manage boredom. They are trying to get your attention. They are trying to get something done. Don't assume they're just being annoying for the sake of being annoying, even if it is annoying. See if you can figure out their aim, and then tell them how to accomplish that aim in a more useful way, right? You're bored? Here's a puzzle. You want my attention? Great. Here's how you have to ask. So redirect, but redirect with the original aim in mind. That will help them behave better.
Love that. Lisa, this has been so informative. I'm so happy we were able to do this. When Brandon, our social media producer for CBS This Morning, asked me to do this, and I immediately jumped at it because I knew this was going to be informative for our viewers and the people who signed on to hear your really thoughtful and informative advice. So I appreciate it. Thank you very, very much.
Let's do it again. Here's my thinking right now. Most people are going to be okay physically through this crisis. Most people are going to really feel the mental health impact. So the more we can do to get people's questions answered, I'm here for it and glad to do it at any time.
Wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Lisa Damour, always a pleasure to talk to you. Stay safe, be well, much love and hugs to your family. And to our viewers, who are watching, we both thank you very much. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you so much for watching us through this very difficult period. We hope that we are serving your public interest by keeping you informed and providing you facts over fear. I'll see you on Monday on CBS This Morning for What to Watch. Lisa will be on with us throughout the next couple of weeks. Thank you so much.
You bet. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
And then hit save, top left corner.
Top left corner.
Can we get the logo in the monitor, please?
Yeah.
I can move that.
So I'm trying to figure out how to save this, guys. This is the fun part. This is the how the sausage is made part.
Did you hit end?
No. Hit end first?
End, yep. And then it will give you a save